everybody, to another mock draft episode here at All Things Football. Today we are tackling the Seattle Seahawks. Chase, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Seattle's a fun team. As I was doing some prep for this, it's a fun team to mock. You know, we got quite a few picks and a pretty good roster of young roster, so it's a pretty fun team.
I agree. Definitely one of the more surprising teams last season, obviously with the emergence of Geno Smith, comeback player of the year,
Yeah.
making that playoff push there. Definitely wasn't expecting that after the whole Russell Wilson debacle, them trading off of him. So very surprised with the Seahawks. And I think they just have a lot of potential here moving forward, especially with the picks that they have this upcoming draft, with the depth that's there in the positions of need as well.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. You know, this is kind of, I thought they'd be picking at 5, going into last season. I didn't expect it to be the Broncos pick, though. I thought it would be their original pick at 5. So it was kind of a pleasant, turnaround that they had right after moving off their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of different ways that can happen when you move off their franchise quarterback, and it looks like at least this year, it was the right decision, and it proved to be beneficial for him. So let's go ahead
Yeah.
and get started here. Before we dive into the draft, Chase, take us through some of these key additions and key departures here for a pre-draft preview.
Yeah, so the Seattle Seahawks lost the running back Rashawn Penny, which I don't know how much of a loss that is with the emergence of Ken Walker, but he is gone now. They also lost former first round LJ Collier, a defensive end, and they lost their run stopper in the middle, Al Woods, as a defensive tackle. But they did send some money in free agency. They brought back Bobby Wagner, and more to be more of a locker room mentor guy than actual on-field performance. But he's going to play. Then they brought back Jaron Reed, who spent a couple years in Green Bay, but they brought him back. They brought in safety Julian Love, and they brought in former first-rounder Devin Bush to play their middle linebacker spot.
A lot of moves, definitely.
Yeah.
So they're making moves. I mean, with the draft and free agency, I'm excited to kind of see here formulate. So now, as we go into the draft part of this, based on these additions and departures, what are you kind of identifying as their biggest positions of need?
Yeah, so Seattle has one glaring position in need, and that is pass rush. Whether it comes from the end or the inside here, they can go edge or DT, but they've got to get someone to get to the passer. Then their secondary is looking at the offense. Maybe a tight end. Noah Fant is good, not great. Their second string tight end gets a lot of reps for no reason. And then their wide receivers. Tyler Lockett's getting old. DK's a stud, but they don't really have anyone other than that. When they placed the Chiefs on Christmas Eve, I was there live watching that offense just crumble because Tyler Lockett wasn't there. So they had no one to get separation for DK. And then at 3, linebacker, even though they brought in those two, they were kind of weak there. And maybe quarterback, right? Geno is great, but he's also, revived his career 10 seasons in, something like that, 8, 10 seasons in. You don't really see that. Is he going to stay on that level of play? So depending on how the board falls, I wouldn't be surprised if they take a quarterback pretty early as well.
All right, a lot to get into. Let's not waste any more time here. Let's go ahead and dive on into this mock draft here for the
Perfect.
Seattle Seahawks. So we have here, we'll go ahead and get us on the clock. Pick number 5.
Pick 5.
All righty. So very interesting how this one has come out. Bryce Young off the board, CJ Stroud, Jalen Carter, and then Anthony Richardson. So very interesting because it's surprising here that Will Anderson is still available to us in this certain mock. Not really sure that this is actually going to happen and be a surprise. I mean, anything can happen, right? But in this case, right, how the board falls to us is what we have available. So, I mean, we're talking about, we're talking about the defensive line and needs to get after the passer. I mean, if Will Anderson Jr. is here, I think probably it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the easiest pick in the book for Seattle. This is probably their dream situation. They don't have to worry about the off-field stuff with Jalen Carter, and they get the best pass rush in this draft, Will Anderson Jr. from Alabama. I think this is a home run pick for them.
I mean, can't miss here. I mean, this made our first pick here pretty easy, actually.
Yeah.
So listen, if this happens, as a GM, you don't care. If this is how it goes, it goes. So we'll pick Will Anderson there at 5. So now Seattle Seahawks are back on the clock here at pick 20. So we've adjusted the defensive line here, Chase. Now with the second pick here in the first, do we double down on the defensive line? Do we look for offensive weapons? Where are you feeling?
Depending on who's gone, I just seen Quentin Johnston went at 18 there, seeing that. But offensive weapon wouldn't be bad, but also that defensive line was pretty bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if they spend double picks on them. But they've kind of got not really a luxury pick, but they've addressed their biggest position in need. So they kind of take what the board gives them, right? It wouldn't be bad to go best player available here at all.
Yeah, and keep in mind as well, right? So we got two picks here in the first round, but then also on pick 37. So they're right back on there at the beginning of round two. So they don't have to reach here at all because somebody could still be there early in round two within the first three picks. Picking in there within the top 50 is crazy actually. So definitely we
Yeah.
can kind of look at. So Collegiate Cansey here is available still to us here at the interior. Brian Brzee is still there. Two players that my evaluation on Kansas has definitely changed as I've gone on through this process. So I definitely like Kansas a little bit more now than I did before. Um,
Oh, I'm the opposite way. I like Kansas a lot, and then the more I look at him, he got that Aaron Donald comparison a lot, except he's not built like Aaron Donald. He's kind of a skinnier guy, so I think he'd be a great pass rusher like we're looking for. But Al Wood stopped the run. Kansas won't be able to stop the run for a while. But I also see they got some wide receivers on the board there. Zay Flowers is pretty high. Addison's pretty good. I like Josh Downs a lot. So
yeah, I mean, two of the top two of my top five wide receivers are still here in Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. I mean, we talked about wide receiver help. It's going to be one of those things where what they value at this position. If they're going to value a receiver here. If they're going to value a defensive edge defense again. I think here though with one of these top receivers here still available. They got the biggest position need and maybe the best player in the whole entire draft. Right, we got Will Anderson Jr. there. And so I
mhm.
think here, flip on the offensive side and get one of the best wide receivers here in the class as well. It's kind of more where I'm leaning towards.
Yeah, I would say so too. I'm looking at Jordan Addison right there. That would be my pick here. I don't know if you're higher on Flowers or maybe Josh Downs, but
Yeah, I personally am higher on Flowers. But we also kind of look at maybe which is best for the Seahawks, right? It's not necessarily
yeah,
which player is available, kind of which is best here for the Seahawks. And so we can take a look here. But I mean, Jordan Anderson, a stud. Obviously won the Blickenkoff Award when he was in Pitt. Came over to USC to play with Caleb Williams and really did some good stuff there. But obviously that 2021 season where he just balled out, which is interesting, right? He balled out with Kenny Pickett as his quarterback. So it's kind of interesting to see how what that was like when I'm not really high on Kenny Pickett. It's kind of been said
yeah,
before. So the fact that they were able to ball it together and put up with that number was pretty impressive.
yeah. And if I do remember right, at Pitt he ran more of an outside, and then went to UNC and he ran more of that slot role. So he does have the ability to run both. So, Jordan Addison's great route runner. Could put him in the slot, and once Tyler Lockett finally advances out, you can move him to the outside if need to. Now, he would be, if you're looking for a replacement for Tyler Lockett, I think Zay Flowers is probably your better replacement for Tyler Lockett, as he is, more of that speed down the field. Jordan Addison didn't have great speed, kind of stunk it up at the combine with his speed rating. So, just kind of depends on if you're trying to replace or Tyler Lockett, or if we're trying to complement Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I'm kind of indifferent. I don't think it matters either way. So I'll let you go ahead and be that deciding factor. What do you think would be best for the Seahawks?
Yeah,
Complement,
I'm saying
replace.
I'm saying Jordan Addison, right? He can complement DK really nice, can complement Tyler Lockett, and then by the time Tyler Lockett's gone, you can grab another speedy guy and put him right next to Jordan Addison if you need that. I say Addison would be better for Geno Smith's game, better tracking the ball down the field. I'm a big Addison guy.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So I think you can't really go. I mean, obviously, maybe you can go wrong either way, right? We never know. But a lot of receivers,
Yeah,
surprise you, right? So a lot of receivers that are big names in the NFL, no one ever expected that to happen, right, when they were coming out. So definitely kind of depends on the situation you're in, as well as the quarterback is throwing you the ball. So Jordan Addison to the Seahawks there. And so now we're back here in round two with pick number 37. And so this is the good part, right? So we still got some edge rushers here available to us. And we've got three picks left, right? This is a huge within the
yes,
first three rounds. The Seahawks have a ton of draft capital. Obviously, a lot of draft capital to move around the board as well. But here, so we've addressed edge rusher and we've addressed wide receiver here. So maybe
Correct.
the two biggest needs of concern. So obviously we can add depth at some other positions. We can keep strengthening that line. Like this is a very deep edge rusher class. This is a deep offensive offensive line draft as well. I think offensive line could be a pick that we could go here as well.
True. Yep. Yep. Maybe inside offensive line as they have those two rookies on the outsides of their tackles. Right. You don't know if it's been a second round on that, but the inside offensive line definitely, especially if I was going to say, especially if Steve Avila is available. That guy is a stud.
Yep.
Their center, I'm trying to think, he's pretty old, so maybe Luke Whippler or Joe Tippmann here. So they've got options here. I'm not shoehorning them into one spot, but
Yep, definitely some different options here, kind of move around a bit. So, I think we've hit, the two biggest positions of need with good quality players. I think, sharing up that offensive line, I think is going to be important as well. Just making sure, obviously accounting for injuries, accounting for different things like that, to have depth there and as a long-term starter, right? It's going to be important, obviously, to keep Gino healthy. And then I think, obviously, see how that plays out. But just to have a good offensive line moving forward, for the next 4 or 5 years, when you got, some solid guys on their young rookie contracts is going to be important. So I love Steve Avila a lot. The fact that he's still here, I think, is a quality pick. I think this is more where I feel best picking Avila here. Some I've seen him go in the first round. I know we've mocked him to the first round before. I think early here in the second, though, I think is where I would feel most comfortable taking him. Um, and
yes.
so I would feel good about Steve Avila here.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good pick, especially because Steve Avila played center for a while, then moved to guard. So depending, they can shuffle him around where they need to. We've talked about that in our past mocks. I think that would be a very good pick to strengthen up that offensive line, give someone that's pretty good in run blocking for Kenneth Walker to run behind. I like that pick a lot.
Let's do it. Not waste any more time here. So back on the clock now here with pick 52. So we've addressed pretty much every biggest need, of concern here. So now I think we're kind of looking at probably best player available. Now that we've hit with our first three picks, very solid players, contributors, I think day one.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And so now we're looking at here, obviously, Tanner McKee's here. I think this is still way too high to draft a potential, backup, potential starting quarterback of the future, unless you're like sold on the guy. I really wouldn't be here. So as far as best player available, I'm not looking too much here at the quarterback position here in round two.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't take, especially in the league. There's not a lot of second round quarterbacks that pan out. So I would not be for taking a quarterback here. But I do see my man Sam Laporta sitting there. That'd be an interesting pick. We already got a pass catcher. We mentioned tight end at the very beginning. So that could be something. Luke Musgraves is still here. Those are two very good tight ends. So depending on who else is on the board, maybe a defensive tackle too could be the move here to get pass rush from the middle. Maybe a run stopper, but I think that's probably where my brain would go to next.
Let's take a look here at interior to see. Benton is still here. Very good at the pass rush as far as where that goes. So definitely some depth there. Somebody that can be there.
Absolutely. Then you got my guy Ika that we've talked about when we were ranking them. He's still there. He's a great run stopper. I don't know. This might be a little stretch for him. I could see him coming maybe late or early third round. This might be a little high for him, but dude's just massive. So
This
I think,
is this is this is tough. Whenever you have so many picks, it's tough to like really narrow down everything. So I think that's like where I feel like if there was just normal three picks, round one, round two, round three, it's a lot easier to kind of hone
yeah,
in on your need and go after your guy. But when you have such luxury picks like these, where there's so many of them, it's definitely hard. Obviously, got to look at linebacker as well.
that's true.
Bobby Wagner, he's obviously still playing at a fairly high level, but definitely on the end of his career. So it's not going to be there forever. So to get somebody to come in and kind of study underneath his tutelage and learn how one of the most great All Pro player has to do it could also be
Yeah.
beneficial as well.
Yeah, and they brought Devin Bush in, but Devin Bush had injury concerns and he wasn't great when he was on there. That's why the Seattle Seahawks let him, or not the Seattle Seahawks. That's why the Pittsburgh Steelers
Steelers.
let him go. So, it wouldn't be the worst thing to bring in a guy maybe as a late second round guy. Maybe you're not expecting him to start right away, but he can be mentored by these two players. So, linebacker wouldn't be a bad choice either.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, looking at it here and thinking about it, I'm thinking probably linebacker here is the way to go. I think
I'm good with
the
that.
the defense, I'm thinking just at the division they're in, the 49ers solid, the Rams when healthy obviously are solid. Um, Cardinals, not so much, but and just looking in that conference as well, a linebacker there that's going
Yeah,
to be able to push rush, run, and coverage. He's average here at pretty much everything. Obviously better at pass rushing than anything else, but a solid guy here in Henley. I think this is probably the best pick here in this spot based on what we've drafted
absolutely.
here.
Yep, I agree. And it wasn't Hentley a former wide receiver? Wasn't he the one that was a former wide receiver? So he kind of knows some offensive routes and whatnot. If I do remember right, he played wide receiver like his first year in the league or something, or first year in college, I guess. I think so, but maybe not.
We'll take him.
But
So now we've got our last pick here in round three. And we've addressed really every area of concern. So here I'm thinking, a guy that would have a lot, we think has a lot of upside, but not necessarily going to be a starter right off the gate, right? And
yeah,
so that can take a variety of different looks depending on kind of the positions that we're in. So based on how the board and how we've drafted so far, what do you think with this last pick here in the third that we should target?
yeah. Knowing this class as well, I think a tight end would be pretty good, and maybe even a cornerback. This is a pretty good cornerbacks class. We haven't really targeted them. Wasn't a huge position of need, but I think that could probably be some studs left on the board there. So
Yeah, we got Tucker Craft here. Fairly good year, fairly good career,
yeah,
really. Honestly, yeah. I mean, this is a deep class here at the tight end position. We can also take a look at the cornerbacks here, see if there's anything that really comes out and jumps off the page at us. Garrett Williams there, Hodges Tomlin is there. So Williams, definitely kind of a more rough around the
more
edges
of
player.
yeah,
There's some good stuff. There's some good stuff there for him, but definitely needs a little bit more work. And obviously, but as we're talking about here, obviously we're looking at players with high upside, not necessarily needing to come in and start right away. That we've kind of drafted here. So definitely a player here that we could target. Um, that I definitely wouldn't be too mad about, right? Um,
no, no. I'm thinking also this could be the spot where Pete Carroll pulls a trigger if he likes a quarterback. I really don't know if there's a quarterback in this class that I'd pull the trigger on in the third, but I could definitely see that as well.
And obviously, we talked about. I think obviously the off, the lines, right? Defensive line, offensive line is
Mm-hmm.
probably the area of most need. So getting another guy here in the third to add some competition and depth there might probably be the smartest thing to do, instead of maybe looking
Yeah,
elsewhere. So take a look here at some of these edge rushers here that are still available to us. Nick Herbig here. I think very underrated player here
I
in
agree.
in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think Nick Herbig, I think last time we talked about him, we kind of gave him that not TJ Watt esque, but kind of played like that off the edge, kind of lined up a little bit everywhere. So I like Herbig a lot. I think he is, just like you see an off ball linebacker, kind of like TJ, just rushing the passer from that linebacker spot. And I think this would be a pretty good spot for him to go. Right, he's projected ranked 58th in the PFF's big board, so I think getting him down at 83 would be a steal. That would probably be my vote for defensive end. I like Isaiah McGuire, but I don't I didn't watch enough Missouri games to know crazy amount of him. But
No, I think Herbig probably might be the biggest picker, right? We
yeah,
addressed, defensive line is probably the biggest position of need, and so you obviously got Will Anderson Jr., shore up there and get an off the tackle player that can go ahead and help us out. So I think we'll go ahead and draft Herbert here and finish up our mock draft here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, go ahead and review that here. We've got Will Anderson Jr. A plus, Jordan Addison C. Those were our first two picks in the first round. Steve Avila at round 2, pick 37, B minus. Dan Henley, A minus, round 2, 52, and round 3, 83, Nick Herbig, A for overall draft grade of A minus. What do you think, Chase?
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. This would it hits the big areas of need: offensive wide receiver, pass catcher, and then defensive pass rush, while also grabbing some depth with your guard and your linebacker. Someone Bobby Wagner can mentor, someone that can probably Steve Avila can probably see the field at some point in time next season. So I think this would be a pretty good draft. I think if the Seattle Seahawks walked away with this, the media would probably be saying it's one of the best drafts they've had. So
Yeah, and obviously we know the past success, especially last season, of getting quality picks, obviously in later rounds. So definitely, with the amount of capital they have, right, 5 picks within the first 2 days of the draft is insane. And so I definitely feel
insane.
confident that they can hit on those picks, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
even if not, they have plenty of more draft capital there in the later rounds to do it.
Yeah,
But when you get the extra picks, based on these trades and things like that with the Russell Wilson, you got to take advantage of it. So I trust the Seahawks to go ahead and do that. They really need to. All right, very tough division. 49ers are phenomenal. The NFC is not as strong as the AFC, but there are other powerhouses in the NFC that are far and above the Seahawks right now. So this draft is going to be crucial
yeah,
for them. But based on this, I think is a good stepping stone they have to put those pieces into place this year, get better this year, but obviously set themselves up in the future to be successful in the future as well.
absolutely, absolutely. Yep. I hope Rod at work likes this draft. He's a huge Seattle fan. He's been talking to me about what he wants them to do. So I hope this goes the way that all Seattle fans want. Right. This is a pretty good draft. I think it's the best that we got with the board that was the way it fell to us. So I'm very confident this would be a very good draft for Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks.
There you go, Rod. Hope you liked it. Rod, go ahead and let us know in the comments, as well as all Seattle Seahawks fans. Let us know here in the comments how we did, if we picked the players that you would like, as Seahawks fans, or if you would have went a different way. Let us hear it in those comments. We look forward to bringing you some more draft content. Uh, Draft is coming up here next week, right? So we're,
Next
we're running
week.
out of time. So definitely make sure give us your Seattle mock drafts, and you know what it is, baby. Catch us next time here on More All Things Football.